"Let's keep things casual," she said in front of her friends while smiling. So I did. But when I stopped paying her rent and invited a real date to our usual spot, suddenly she wanted to talk about us. The situation with Vanessa had been going on for 8 months before I finally understood what I actually was to her, which was a walking ATM with benefits who she could parade around when it suited her purposes, but dismiss as just a friend whenever commitment became a topic of conversation. We'd met at a networking event in Denver where I'd been representing my consulting firm, and she'd been there promoting her interior design business that seemed to generate more Instagram content than actual revenue. She was beautiful in that very deliberate way some women are, where every outfit looks carefully constructed and every photo angle has been practiced. We started talking about real estate trends. She mentioned she was looking for a new apartment. I mentioned I owned a few rental properties. 3 weeks later, we were sleeping together, and I was helping her move into one of my units in Capitol Hill, a 2-bedroom place I normally rented for $2,000 a month, but told her she could have for $1,200 because we were dating, and I wanted to help her business get established. That was my first mistake, mixing financial assistance with romantic involvement, but I was 36 years old and should have known better, except apparently I didn't. For the first few months, everything seemed normal, or what I understood as normal for a relationship. We had dinner together 3 or 4 times a week. We spent weekends at my place or hers. She posted photos of us on her social media with captions about date nights and good company. I met some of her friends at a gallery opening she'd organized. Everything pointed toward this being an actual relationship, heading somewhere serious. Then came the birthday party. Her friend Ashley was turning 30 and threw this elaborate celebration at a rooftop bar downtown. Vanessa asked me to come with her. I bought a gift for Ashley, even though I'd only met her twice. We arrived together. Vanessa introduced me to people I hadn't met before, and everything was fine until this guy named Craig showed up. Craig was apparently Vanessa's ex-boyfriend from 2 years ago, which she'd mentioned once in passing but never elaborated on. He was tall and worked in finance and had that particular brand of confidence that comes from making too much money too young. Within 10 minutes of Craig arriving, Vanessa's entire demeanor shifted. She started laughing louder at other people's jokes. She touched my arm less frequently. She created physical distance between us in ways that felt deliberate. About an hour into the party, I was standing with Vanessa and 3 of her friends, including Ashley, when Craig walked over and made some comment about how good Vanessa looked. One of her friends, a woman named Bethany, jumped in with this teasing tone. "So are you two finally official, or are you still keeping things casual?" She was looking at Vanessa when she asked. Vanessa didn't even hesitate. "Oh, we're keeping things casual." Her smile was bright and easy, like she was discussing the weather. "Brandon and I are just having fun. Nothing serious, right?" She looked at me then, her expression expectant, like I was supposed to agree enthusiastically with being downgraded to casual status in front of her friends and her ex-boyfriend. I felt something cold settle in my chest, but I kept my face neutral. "Right, just casual." My voice came out flat. Ashley looked uncomfortable. Bethany looked confused. Craig looked satisfied in a way that made me want to punch him. Vanessa kept smiling. The rest of the party was torture. I stayed for another hour because leaving immediately would have looked like I was upset, which I was. But I wasn't about to give her or Craig the satisfaction of seeing it. When we left, Vanessa acted like nothing had happened. She held my hand in the Uber back to her apartment. She invited me inside. I declined, claiming I had an early morning meeting, which was a lie but a necessary one, because I needed space to think about what had just occurred. Over the next week, I replayed that moment constantly. "We're keeping things casual," echoed in my head while I reviewed what our relationship actually consisted of beyond the surface appearances. I was paying her reduced rent, which meant I was subsidizing her housing by $800 a month. I'd bought her business cards and helped her set up her website because I knew people in web development. I'd introduced her to potential clients through my professional network. I'd taken her to nice restaurants and paid for everything because she claimed her business was still building momentum and money was tight. Meanwhile, what was I getting beyond the privilege of being publicly dismissed as casual whenever it suited her image management? I called my brother Owen, who lived in Boulder and worked as a therapist, which meant he'd heard every variation of relationship dysfunction humanity could produce. I explained the situation. Owen listened without interrupting, which was his professional training kicking in. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. So she gets reduced rent, business connections, financial support, and the appearance of having a successful boyfriend when she wants one. But the moment commitment becomes a topic, she downgrades you to casual? His voice carried that particular tone therapists use when they're helping you reach an obvious conclusion. Yeah, that's the situation. And you're still doing all those things for her even after she publicly declared you're not serious? I haven't changed anything yet because I only just processed what happened. I've been trying to figure out if I'm overreacting. Owen made a noise that suggested I was being deliberately obtuse. You're not overreacting. She's using you for resources while keeping her options open, and she humiliated you in front of her friends and her ex to maintain that flexibility. The question isn't whether you're overreacting, it's what you're going to do about it. I knew what I was going to do about it, but I needed a few days to set things up properly, because if Vanessa wanted casual, I was going to show her what casual actually looked like when the person providing financial support decided to take her at her word. First, I texted my property manager and told him to send Vanessa a lease amendment raising her rent to market rate $2,000 monthly starting next month. I explained that I was removing the relationship discount because we'd clarified we were keeping things casual and mixing business with casual arrangements was poor judgment. He sent the amendment that afternoon. Second, I went through my phone and removed the calendar blocks I'd been holding for our regular dinner nights. If we were casual, I didn't need to reserve specific times for someone who might or might not be available depending on what other options presented themselves. Third, I called a woman named Stephanie, who I'd met at a coffee shop 3 months ago. She'd given me her number. I'd never used it because I was dating Vanessa. But if Vanessa and I were casual, there was no reason not to explore other options. Stephanie seemed pleased to hear from me. We made plans for dinner Thursday night at Mizuna, which was the restaurant Vanessa and I went to regularly, because she loved their tasting menu. I specifically chose that location because I wanted to make a point, and the point required visibility. Vanessa called me Tuesday evening, 2 days after receiving the lease amendment. Her voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. "Brandon, what is this lease amendment about? Why are you raising my rent?" "Because we're keeping things casual, remember? You made that very clear at Ashley's party. It doesn't make sense for me to give you a relationship discount when we're not in a relationship." I kept my tone pleasant, like we were discussing something completely reasonable. "That's not what I meant. I was just telling Bethany we weren't rushing into anything serious. You know how my friends are, they push for labels." She was backpedaling now, trying to reframe what had happened. "Actually, I don't know how your friends are, because you've only introduced me to them a handful of times, and when you did, you made sure everyone understood I was just casual fun. So I'm taking you at your word. Casual means we're not serious, which means there's no reason for me to subsidize your housing." Vanessa went quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted to something softer, more manipulative. "Baby, come on, you're reading too much into what I said. I didn't mean anything by it. We're good together. You know that? If we're good together, why did you feel the need to downgrade us in front of your ex-boyfriend? That wasn't about your friends pushing for labels. That was about you keeping your options open in case Craig was interested again." My patience for her explanations had evaporated. "That's not fair. I can't help that Craig was there. I wasn't trying to hurt you." "Maybe not, but you did hurt me, and more importantly, you clarified what this actually is, so I'm adjusting my behavior accordingly. The new rent is market rate. You can sign the amendment, or you can find a different apartment. Either way, I'm done subsidizing someone who won't even acknowledge we're dating." I hung up before she could respond. She texted me 6 times that night. Each message tried a different approach, from apologetic to angry to confused. I didn't respond to any of them. Thursday came. Stephanie met me at Mizuna at 7. She was funny and smart and worked as a veterinarian, which meant she had actual career stability, unlike Vanessa's aspirational interior design business. We ordered the tasting menu. We talked about travel and books, and her work with rescue animals. I was genuinely enjoying myself for the first time in weeks, not thinking about Vanessa, or her public dismissal, or the 8 months I'd spent investing in someone who saw me as an amenity rather than a partner. Then Vanessa walked in. She was with 2 friends I recognized from the birthday party. They were being seated across the restaurant, close enough that she had a clear view of my table. Her eyes found me immediately. I watched her process the situation, me at our restaurant with another woman, laughing and clearly on a date. Her expression went through several rapid changes before settling on something that looked like controlled fury. I turned my attention back to Stephanie, who was telling a story about a dog who'd eaten an entire birthday cake. About 15 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. I glanced at it and saw 3 texts from Vanessa. I silenced my phone and put it face down on the table. Stephanie noticed, but didn't comment. After dinner, I walked Stephanie to her car. We made plans to meet again the following week. I kissed her goodnight, nothing too intense but enough to make clear this was a romantic situation with potential. Then I drove home and finally read Vanessa's messages. The first one said, "We need to talk about us." The second one said, "I saw you at Mizuna with someone else. I can't believe you do that." The third one said, "Call me tonight. This is important." I didn't call her. I sent one text response at 11 p.m. "There is no us, remember? We're keeping things casual. That means I can date other people. Just like you kept your options open with Craig at the party. You wanted casual, so I'm being casual. Hope you enjoyed dinner." Her response came within 30 seconds. "That's not what casual means, and you know it. We've been together for 8 months. You can't just start seeing other people because you're mad about one comment I made." I actually laughed reading that. One comment you made in front of your friends and your ex-boyfriend to make sure everyone knew I wasn't your serious boyfriend. But sure, let's pretend this is about me overreacting instead of you being upset that I took you at your word and adjusted my expectations accordingly. My phone rang. I declined the call. It rang again. I declined again and then turned it off completely. The next morning I had 12 missed calls from Vanessa and a series of texts that escalated from apologetic to accusatory. The final one said, "You're doing this because you're petty and immature. A real man wouldn't punish someone over a misunderstanding." I responded once. A real woman wouldn't publicly downgrade someone she claims to care about, just to keep her ex-boyfriend interested. I spent 8 months giving you reduced rent, business connections, financial support, and commitment, while you treated me like an option you could dismiss whenever it suited your image. You wanted to keep things casual in front of your friends? Fine. Now we're casual for real. Which means I don't owe you explanations or exclusivity or anything else you suddenly decided you wanted once I stopped being available on your terms. The lease amendment stands. You can sign it or move out by the end of the month. And I'm seeing Stephanie again next week because, unlike you, she doesn't need to perform unavailability to feel valuable. Vanessa showed up at my house that afternoon. I watched through the window as she knocked and rang the doorbell repeatedly. I didn't answer. She sent more texts saying we needed to talk in person, that texting wasn't the right way to handle this. I sent one final message. You had 8 months to handle this right. You chose to keep me at arm's length while accepting everything I offered. The moment you declared us casual, in front of your ex, was the moment you lost the right to demand serious relationship conversations. I'm done being someone's backup plan while they wait for something better. Sign the lease amendment or don't, but either way we're finished. She moved out 3 weeks later without signing the amendment, which meant she had to forfeit her security deposit for breaking the lease early. I rented the apartment to a young couple for full market rate within a week. Stephanie and I dated for 6 months before mutually deciding we worked better as friends, but those 6 months taught me something valuable about the difference between someone who wants you around and someone who wants what you provide. Vanessa sent me a message about a year later saying she realized she'd made a mistake and asking if we could talk. I read it once and then deleted it without responding, because some mistakes don't deserve second chances, and some people only recognize value once they've lost access to it, and I wasn't interested in teaching her that lesson twice.